We all know that 2020 was a crazy year for everybody. Back in the spring of 2020, the Connecticut Professional Photographers Association reached out to me and invited me to host a webinar and talk about my journey as a photographer. So, without further ado, here it is. There we go. So this is a 9-year-old me finding my calling for photography.
That's a pooping picture, Mom! Who did? And he said, Daddy,
How nice the clouds are.
Mom.
Beautiful.
Mom,
Get a shot of the golf ball in front of those nice clouds.
Yeah, no, come here. Look what it's a good picture.
Where?
Good picture.
Oh, that's a nice picture. Yeah, right there, right there. Here we are, noticing how well you can take a picture.
That was me, 9-year-old me. I don't know if you guys heard sound on that. I hope you did, because that was me discovering the perfect picture. All right. So I'm going to stop this for a second.
I wish I had a video of me at that age saying that. Oh my God, that is so cute.
Yeah, and I didn't even find it really, like, I knew it existed, but I honestly had forgotten about it. Okay, so here we go. Let's see. This is where we're starting. So we're gonna get into the story of basically like how I changed directions and how some isolated incidents had caused that change, which is obviously for the positive. Here's some images. This is me and my wife from our engagement photo on the top, road trip, and then our honeymoon down there on the bottom right hand side. Let's see here. We had our wedding. Everything was awesome. We got married in 2015, and the story begins the day after we got back from our honeymoon. And the day we got back from our honeymoon, if this thing will go to my next slide, my wife went into the hospital for 3 months. She ended up having acute liver failure, which we had absolutely no idea where it came from. We will never know where it came from, and we kind of had to make peace with that and just kind of move on from it. While we were in the hospital, I lived there basically every day. I was still shooting weddings. I was still working because I had to, like things, time for me didn't stop. I had to, get back to work and do all of that. She was listed for transplant. She was on the top of the list for transplant. But miracles happen, and she didn't end up needing a transplant, and she recovered on her own, because the liver is the only internal organ that can regenerate itself. And so we were very lucky because it just came out of nowhere. And if you guys know anything about liver failure or anything like that, it happens pretty quickly, and sometimes it doesn't go the way you want it to. And luckily for us, we're doing pretty well. And then during that time, my studio kind of like, it was being ignored. This is my studio back around the time that she was in the hospital. My brother would stay at the studio and work as my studio manager and kind of look over things. And then after a bit of time, I used to be I was a lot more on social media, like a few times a day and posting, and then people started asking questions, and, we had to make an announcement, and we told people after she was in the hospital for over a month, nobody had known what was going on. So that'll bring me to my next slide. My next slide is kind of pivotal image for me. I was actually just recently asked. I taught a class, or I didn't teach a class. I actually spoke at it was a career day on Zoom a couple of weeks ago. And one of the students asked me, like, what is my favorite photo that I've ever taken? And it's a very, very hard question. And if you guys can answer that question for yourself, you know, awesome. For me, I couldn't answer it, but I did answer it with another photo of the photo that probably means the most or represents a lot of change in, you know, a pivotal moment for me. And that's this photo right here. A year later, after my wife got out of the hospital, she worked super hard and she ended up doing her first Tough Mudder. So super inspiring, because she, you know, seeing her in a hospital bed for 3 months and then her kind of, you know, building her strength up, you know, and able to do this. This photo's blown up in my studio, and I have it as a reminder that, you know, better days are coming. So, so that is the image that kind of sticks with me and kind of changed a lot of the you know, perspective of stuff. After that, I needed to do some kind of a change. I needed a reset. I needed to hit that reset button. And it started with my studio. I was uninspired at my studio, so I wanted to update it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this is my studio now.
Yeah. Hey. Yeah. 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 Hey. Yeah. 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 Hey. Yeah. 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 I got something in motion. Something you can't see. It requires devotion from those who truly believe. This is something you can't touch. This is something you feel. Yeah. For some people it's too much. For some people it heals. This music is my healing. This music is my healing.
So that's my studio now, and you know, if you hear in the music, I picked the music out. It's "The Healing" by Gary Clark Jr., and it just represented you know, a big change. You know, there's very strategic things that have been placed in that studio and why they were placed where they were. You notice I put up that wall in the front. That wasn't there before, but behind that wall where the front door is, I kept that red wall. And it was kind of like, you could look back at it and things are still there, because your past is your past, and it's always going to be there. But once you walk by that wall, you know, you're in a new space, and you could look back, you could still see the red. It's not forgotten. But when you walk in, you're in a completely new mind frame.
Do you have a shooting area in the studio?
I do not. So that's actually really good to point out. I used to have a shooting, I used to have the back area as a shooting, and then I moved my office into the back area where that wall was. And then I moved that portion up front because it was more room. I had more room to shoot, and I had, you know, bigger lights at that point. And it was actually a really big decision because, you know, when I first started my career, I used to shoot everything in the studio. Used to use so much external lighting. Everything was shot with lighting. Even when I went to weddings, I would bring in the soft boxes. I would do all that stuff. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because that is a big change in my style since then too. I got to a point where I had to make a decision. I was like, well, you know, I was kind of in a process of changing my style and doing different things. And I decided, you know what? If I need to shoot in a studio, or a studio setting and I'm doing portraits or whatever, I have a traveling kit, so I could bring it anywhere. If I need to set it up in there, I'll set it up in there, but it won't be like as extravagant or whatever. But I'll be honest with you, I have completely switched gears, and now I'm mainly a natural light photographer. Even when I'm indoors and whatever, the only time I really use studio lighting is when I go on any kind of like commercial job, and I'm really have to set stuff up. But studio stuff, like, I don't shoot in there anymore. So I wanted to create the studio more as a creative space. My hopes were for people to be able to come and relax and be inspired and kind of work and have a space to work. Not just myself, but like have, if any other creatives wanted to come in and kind of use the space to work and things like that, I wanted to welcome them. But I use it mainly as a meeting space, as a creative space for me to work and kind of separate myself from the rest of the world, and kind of just zone in on things. There's only so much that I could do while I'm at home. This is, by the way, this is not my studio. This is my house. This is my game cave, my nerd cave, my game room. So I am not. So I use the studio now to kind of like just be inspired with all of my work. So I have kind of more of a zone of things to accomplish. Thank you for asking that. That's great. So once I finished the renovation, during that time, my wife, we were very fortunate. My wife was pregnant, and we welcomed our baby. This is Kylie. The day she was born, I actually set up my Fuji X-T3 in the hospital and gave it to our doula. And I just set it for her. I said, just snap pictures, just do your thing. And she captured these images for me. And then this is kind of like where my style kind of, gradually changed, is that I wanted to take, more photos of moments. A lot of my work beforehand was just superposed, making sure everything was technically sound and everything. And it kind of, it's these little moments that mattered more than just setting everything up, and worrying about the technical aspect of it. I don't stray away from grain. I think grain is part of the charm in photography. I feel like when you're taking photos, you want to make sure that you're doing it organically, and you want to make sure that you're capturing things as they're happening. And that's just my style. Like, I want to tell stories now, and I was able to tell stories through some portraits, but now it's more of personal stories and personal growths. And when it comes to families or weddings or even in portraits, it's more of lifestyle and documentary style, or environmental portraits. So so we got very blessed. We had Kylie. My wife was in better health, and we did it. So we got back to a new life, and here's my baby. This was her on the top from her 1-year birthday party. And then the bottom one is just shot a few days ago in our backyard. So she is now 19 months, and she likes to run around, and she likes to collect rocks, and she, and let's see here. I think I have I'm getting frozen again, but there you go. There's her first birthday party. She loves cake. Let's see. I think this is, there we go. Okay, so so that's where I am in my personal life at that moment in time. So everything happened in 2015, and kind of gradually, now we're in 2020. This was my past 5 years. And it was a very big growth experience. And also finding myself in photography and finding my actual place. I was in business for 10 years before that, almost 10 years before that, and it was a gradual, and things just happened. Things happened organically, and you know, not to sound cliche, but that's the title of this webinar, is that how I found it organically. And things just flow. Life happens. You know, the past happens, and it's shaping us to be who we are, and we shouldn't stray away from any of that. What I am going to get into now is a little bit of, you know, how my work has changed. I don't have my old work to show you just because it's so bland and it's just a portraits and everything. But what I want to show you is, like, now these are my lifestyle and environmental portraits. You know, it's more of being in the scene and trying to tell a story, you know, with my subjects. I mean, this photo right here obviously is, you know, a model, and it was for lifestyle portrait, and, you know, just taking images. But it's the way I look at it, and I hope that other people can see it, is it's also about the times. It's a time of, you know, the springtime. It's new life. It's, you know, taking in the sun. It's, you know, for that person, it means a big difference than just any other average person looking at the photo and saying, hey, that's just, you know, that's a nice picture. It's about the experience and the connection for the subjects. Same thing here. Portraits. You know, the one on the left there, that's my friend Tim, who's in a band who I take photos for. I've been able to go on tour with him and his band. And I just love this portrait because it's him. It's his natural look. And it, you know, when he looks at it, and when his wife looks at it, and the rest of his family look at it, they see him. And, you know, eyes are a big thing that I'm trying to capture, and getting the emotion through the eyes. And I think that accomplishes it greatly for him personally. I mean, knowing him personally, that's me. And I hope that, again, other people can see that. This is my buddy Russ. This is more of what I would call like an environmental portrait, where my friend Russ is a big gamer, and he's big into toys, and he's, you know, he's like me. You know, we're really good friends, and we see each other all the time. And he has a Mario Kart. Like, that's his actual driving car every day. Like, he built this car, and, you know, even though it's portraits of him with his car, it's representing him of who he is. And that's what I like to do. You know, I don't take a lot of jobs where, you know, it's just straight up portrait. A lot of people come to me because they know that, you know, we want to capture us during a certain time in our life. This, for him, Toys R Us has just closed. You know, and actually, to tell you the truth, guys, growing up, in high school, I worked at Toys R Us. So it meant a lot to me too, because this is after they closed, before they took all the signs down, he wanted to go and take some portraits with his car. And not only that, but I don't remember how far before that, but he had actually crashed his car. And this is actually a new car that he had completely remodeled in a new way. So it was kind of a new beginning for him as well. So that's why we, you know, we do this. We want to create a connection with our clients. Here's some more, you know, portraits and, you know, lifestyle work, environmental, you know, just getting the sign of the times. And I just thought the black and white really worked with this. And I always take my SX70 with me to take portraits of people that I know wherever I go. These are friends of mine that live in, I think it's New Hampshire. I was again, New Hampshire and Vermont, confused, they're close. But from New Hampshire, and I saw them in Pennsylvania for a convention. And, you know, I was able to take their portraits, and I always take portraits of, you know, on my Polaroid. My Polaroid kind of acts as like a little thing for me, because it's completely manual. It's completely, you know, the SX70, you know, you have to control the brightness, the contrast, you know, like the focus, you know, all of that is manual in the camera. And it's really a nice, you know, way to step back and kind of slow yourself down. And now I have these photos in my studio kind of hanging up, and it's kind of a timeline storytelling for myself of, like, you know, the people that I've photographed, where it's a simple portrait that was instant, and I was able to have that experience creating that portrait right on the go and then having that displayed in my studio. So
David,
yeah.
just a question. Do you ever give these people, like, take 2 Polaroids, and do you
I
ever
do.
give them one?
Yes, I do.
Do you
And as a
sign
matter of, do I sign them? So I do this at my weddings, especially where I take a Polaroid of them. I do this at every single wedding. I take a Polaroid of them, and I also take some photos, obviously, like on my camera, and I actually have a little digital printer that hooks up to my phone and prints little Fuji instant photos.
them? Oh,
So I can
cool.
actually print my cell phone photos, or what I do is I send photos to my Dropbox
Mhm.
and then download them to my phone and then print them. And then at the end of the night, I hand them to my couples as a little gift. Not anything that they're expecting, but for me, you know, it's a little thank you, and it's a little something for them to take with them that's tangible, you know, and go home with a photo, you know, so they don't have to wait, you know, a couple of weeks. It's something that like they've experienced, and it's something that I'm handing to them on their wedding day, and hopefully, you know, they hold on to it, and you know, they're very grateful. They love them, and it's just a little added thing that I do to make sure, you know, it's, you know, they take something on their honeymoon with them and be able to look at the day, and you know, even though they're waiting on their professional photos, you know,
That's
within
no,
a
that's
couple
a
weeks.
fantastic idea. Back in the days of film, I used to do the same thing. I would bring a digital, not a digital, a dye sub printer, and I would print out some images and give them a little album. And it makes them feel so special. So
Yeah,
fantastic.
thanks. So these images that I just showed you. Those are all images that I have taken after my wife was sick. A year before my wife got sick, I had the very extreme honor to go down to Mets spring training and shoot with the team. For people that don't know, I am a huge Mets fan. I have a Mr. Met tattooed on my leg. I've been a big Mets fan for years and years. I think since 1988 is when I became a Mets fan. And my dad's a Yankees fan, but I think the reason that I'm a Mets fan is because in the 80s, the Yankees were terrible, so my dad was not watching baseball, so it didn't rub off on me. If you want the true story is one day I was all by myself watching television, and this is how I became a Mets fan. And thank God I'm a Mets fan for this reason. There was a baseball game on. I think it was on Channel 11, because the Mets are still on Channel 11. And it was the Mets playing the Montreal Expos. For the people that remember, the Montreal Expos are now the Washington Nationals, the big rivals. And I just sat there and I said, whoever wins this game, that's my team. And luckily the Mets won, or else I'd be a Washington Nationals fan right now. But it makes for, you know, good conversation. You know, I go to the Mets games with my dad. I go to the Yankee games with my dad. So it's fun. But yeah, I got to go down and meet David Wright and meet all the players. But this work, and the reason I'm showing you this is because these are photos from before I was, you know, went through this change. And when I look at these photos, I can completely see the difference in how I present and how I like my feelings towards these images. They're portraits. They're technical portraits. You know, they're not anything that really has a lot of I don't even know. Like it's nothing emotional behind it. It's just something like, hey, I want to take this picture of Curtis Granderson. I asked him, I said, hey, Curtis, can I take a couple quick photos? And I made sure, I was like, let me shoot it. I'm going to shoot it at like a 1.2, and I'm going to blur stuff out. Like that's all done in camera. None of that is digital. And so I got very technical with it. And now it's just, you know, yeah, I get technical with it, but now I know a lot more about the technical aspect where I could kind of do things on the fly and have it in the back of my brain. But at that, it was very, you know, like thought out, and I kind of predetermined how I wanted to approach any given portrait at that time. But now it's kind of like, hey, on the fly, like we got to get we're getting the photo as things are happening, because split second later, like you could miss it. Going into my wedding photography. So my wedding photography, yes, I do some pose stuff like this, but it's not necessarily pose, because I will place them sometimes and I'll just say, you guys do your thing. And as even though this particular image may look like it's posed, I mean, I didn't direct him to, like, you know, give her a little kiss on the forehead. I was just, you know, being ready for it. Same thing with these, you know, like I was just ready for them. You know, you kind of put them together. You say, I just told him, I said, close your eyes, relax, take a deep breath, and just kind of take in this moment in time. And that's what I'm capturing. I don't want, you know, I always say to them, hey, we'll definitely get your mom and dad shots where you look at the camera, you smile, you pose, because those are the photos that the parents want. They want everyone to look very nice and happy. But these are the photos that are really going to tell a story for them, and they may remember down the road like what they were thinking about in that moment in time, and that's what I'm there to capture. This photo, the bride was just walking out to the rocks, and I just grabbed my camera, just started shooting. Like, this isn't anything that was thought out. I had no intention of taking this photo. It was just very organic. Here's an example too. I did a wedding in New York where they walked all the way to the ceremony at St. Patrick's Cathedral, carrying some balloons. And me and my other photographer, we were just there, we were capturing the moment as they were walking. But the ones on the bottom there, that's them walking back to the reception with all their friends and family. They had, like, I'm telling you, it was like 8 blocks of just walking and hanging out with their friends, and it was great. For those of you that are wedding photographers, you know about the first looks. Now, I know that a lot of photographers will choose to kind of do first looks and have them pause and kind of like do that, you know, in kind of moments, and then capture them and then let them proceed. For me, I let them go fully, like, as themselves. I say, okay, you guys are set up. Don't worry about us. We're going to back up. We're just going to capture. So all of these is just reactions. This is the excitement for this groom, and then the excitement when they turned around. This was in the pouring rain. My couple didn't care. They just wanted to have that moment. And I said, have your moment. We're just going to bounce around. Don't worry about us. Kind of enjoy yourselves, and do your thing. And then it leaves us, and that's what we're hired for. We're hired there to capture these moments and make sure that we get it for the couple and have a moment that they're going to be able to look back on. These are very important. So when I was talking about my wife in the hospital, something happened that I regretted for a very, very long time. I took full responsibility for a lot and for a very long time. And I said, this is never going to happen again. And the story goes that my dad, he has 4 brothers. And as a family, we're very rarely together. But everybody was at my wedding. So it was super cool to have all of my uncles at my wedding. And we wanted to make sure that we got a photo of my dad with his brothers at my wedding. And unfortunately, it didn't happen. And the reason for that not happening is not because, you know, we just, you know, we couldn't wrangle everybody around. It's just because, you know, it just didn't happen. There was nothing that, like, I've learned that I'm not to blame. We just didn't get the shot. I was at my wedding. I was not photographing my own wedding. I said, let my photographer deal with it. But, you know, and because of that reason, I took full blame of not getting that photo. While my wife was in the hospital, one of my uncles had passed away. And looking back on it, my wedding was the last time that they were all together. And that's why I took a lot of responsibility of that, because it was my wedding and I want to make sure that we got a photo of them. And the last time that they were all together, we don't have that. So the best thing that I said to myself was, you know what? I can't beat myself up over that anymore, but I am not, and I refuse to let that happen to anybody else. So when I'm at a wedding, I make sure 100% we get every single shot that we need. Whether or not the circumstances are against us, we as photographers need to make sure that we get those photos, because it is not, the day is not about us. The day is not about, you know, the photos that we want to take. This is a matter of the photos that your couple wants to have. And so this wedding right here, this is obviously the grandparents of the bride and groom. I was second shooting this wedding. And when I'm second shooting, I'm trying to do things that, you know, the first photographer is like, oh, okay, I'm taking family portraits. I need to concentrate on that. If I see people hanging around and stuff, I'm making sure that I capture them, because those are the shots that I need to get that I know are going to be very beneficial, not only to my other photographer, but for the couple themselves. I saw this couple standing there. While the main photographer was shooting the portraits, I said, hey guys, can you just get together really quick? I had him, you know, crack a couple jokes to her, and these are just very organic photos. And I'm sure, obviously as a second shooter, I don't get communication with the couple themselves, because it's not my wedding. But I'm certain that, you know, if this were my grandparents and I was able to do this for my family, that, you know, they would greatly appreciate that. And, you know, just as another example, like I did a wedding years ago where a lot of photographers, they leave, you know, during the reception. All right. We're hired help. We're there for a certain amount of time. I make sure that I'm there till the very end, every single time. Okay. No matter what. The reason for that is because of stuff like this. There was one example, and I'll just go into it really quickly, so I don't want to bore you guys, but really quick, there was one wedding in particular where the grandfather was sitting all night long. You know, we did family portraits and that was great, but sitting all night long for the reception. Last 5 minutes of the reception, he gets up, he goes and dances with the bride. We have, at that point, started breaking down some of our lights and kind of wrapping up a little bit, but I still have my camera, everything ready to go. I grabbed my camera, ran on the dance floor, grabbed some photos of the bride with her grandfather. And if I was not there, I could not capture it. And just a few short months after that, he had passed away. And I'm just very happy that I was able to capture those. And again, it's not for me, it's for them. It's for their, you know, stories and you know, their wedding day. And I always say this to all my clients, this is your day. This isn't your wedding 5 hours. This isn't your wedding 8 hours. This is your wedding day. There is a start time, sure. But as far as the end time goes, I'm always there till the end because of that reason. You do not know. And hey, 7 out of 10 times, maybe nothing happens. But if I'm there, at least we know that it's going to be captured. So that's why, you know, images like this are super important. One other small example was, and this goes to show, hey, if the opportunity is not there, then you go to that opportunity. I had another couple who the grandfather, he couldn't really walk well or anything. So where we were doing portraits, he really couldn't get back to where we were doing the photos. So I said, okay, well, where is he? Let's go to him, because there was one photo they wanted to get, and that was the generations photos. And there was 4 generations of boys that they wanted to get a photo of. And this is a perfect example of when I reverted back and thought about my uncle. And I was like, you know what? I don't care if he's not here. If he's not here, we're going to go to him. So we went to him, we pulled him over, we took some portraits. And then I kind of separated the group and just took some portraits of him. I told him a couple little jokes, couple dad jokes. He started cracking up. It's like the most authentic smile for him. And then the Monday after that wedding, my bride called me and asked me, hey, we're excited to look at the photos. Do you know when they might be around? At that time, I was zooming them out. So I was like nearly done with that wedding a few days later. And I said, I'm just about done with your photos. It's like, okay, well, good, because his grandfather's not doing too well, and we want to show him the photos before, you know, that happens. And again, if I didn't go and get that opportunity to make sure that it happened, those photos wouldn't exist today, and that's why we're there. So that's a little bit of background of my weddings. For family day sessions, so I've said this before to some people, but I typically don't do a lot of posed family formals. I'll do it on occasion upon request, but for me, it's about family day sessions, and that is spending time with your family, going to a location, making a day out of it. I do like 3, 4, sometimes 5-hour sessions where we travel to different locations. It can go like, hey, let's go have lunch. Let's go to your house and get ready. And it's typically, you know, the couples with young kids, as you see here, you know, we get them ready for the day. And the reason for this is because how many times do you see couples, you know, going out on an excursion with their family and the whole family is not in the photos? It's because somebody's in there with their phone, they're taking photos, they're taking selfies, they're not being able to really enjoy the time that they have. So I'm there to let them kind of enjoy their time with their family and be a part of the photos themselves. And that way they can look back at it and, you know, remember that that was a good day where we all got to just be present as opposed to just, you know, taking our own photos, which I have nothing against. I urge them, but it's actually really funny. A couple of sessions that I've done where I'm taking maybe some pictures of, you know, the baby with dad or something, and then the mom brings out her phone, and I have to tell her, I was like, just put your phone away, just enjoy this, like really enjoy what you're doing. I got this covered. I'm good. Like, this is why I'm here. So, you know, it's that opportunity that makes them really enjoy their time. Let's see what happened here.
Just a curiosity, David, do you ever get any blowback from some of those people saying, but I really want to take some of these pictures, I want to, you know?
I don't. I mean, I'm very lucky. I mean, I haven't, but I mean, I think that is also part of the experience in how you explain yourself of why you even do it in the first place. So when I'm on the phone with them or I'm setting up the shoot, this family in particular, I'm going to tell you a story about this family real quick. So I met this couple at one of my own weddings. I met them at one of my own weddings. They were just a guest. They had approached me at the wedding and they said, hey, we're getting married. We're going to have our ceremony down in New Orleans. We're doing a very, very small wedding. We're not bringing anybody down. And at that point, they were like, you know, we already have somebody that's going to take photos for us down there. But when we get back, we would really like to work with you and doing maybe like a bridal shoot, like of the 3 of us. Cause they had, this is Lucian. They already had the baby. And when we did that session, she then called me a couple months later and we set up a family session. And these are some of the images that, you know, we went and got cupcakes. So we went to, he loves trains. So we went to a railroad museum that had trains that they were able to go on and interact with. And at the time too, this was actually, and they also use this as the Leap Day shoot because we shot this on Leap Day, February 29th. And so she's also, you can't tell by this photo, but she's pregnant right there. And they just, they had their baby just recently, and has already called me to do another session for them in the fall, because it's just a thing that they can do to commemorate all their time as a family and not have to worry about cell phones and taking pictures, and they just shut everything off. So she's actually the one that pulled out her phone, and then I had to remind her. I was like, put it away, like just enjoy it. And once she did, like the smile at the end of their face was amazing. And that's why we do this.
I'm
There's a
just
photo.
curious.
Yeah, go ahead.
Nope, sorry. Curious too. Do you incorporate video into any of this?
I don't, I haven't. It's a good idea to maybe shoot maybe some very small clips as I'm doing it. And I think maybe that is an idea for me to explore. Things are happening super quickly, so I kind of have to have a game plan ahead of time. But if the moment happens, then I think that's a great idea. I think that's something that I might actually try out. So thank you for that, Marietta.
You're welcome.
But this is another thing. Like I had them like kind of just walking through the trains, and I just sat back. Like I said, okay, guys, I actually tricked them a little bit. I said, okay, guys, I just got to switch out cards or switch out a battery or whatever. And I just I didn't like, I only had my, at these shoots like this, I shoot with a Fuji X-T3. And the reason I shoot with the Fuji X-T3 for like cocktail hours and other stuff at weddings and family stuff like this is because it's small, it's compact, it's professional grade, but it's also very less obtrusive. So you don't really notice a lot of things happening. So this was captured by them thinking that I was just taking a photo, changing a battery or changing a memory card or whatever it was. And, luckily I was ready to go and I was just taking photos. So it's these little organic moments that I just don't set up. And when they look at them, that's all that matters. And I don't know if you could tell, if you could see this, but you could see the dad with the son, you see the mom there, but do you see the dad's right hand?
Yep.
The dad's right hand is right on her stomach. So she was having the other baby, and like this photo in particular just kind of encompassed the entire family. And as subtle as it is, it's there.
Kay had a question for you. What lens are you mainly using?
So for this particular one, I'm mainly using, so my absolute favorite, especially with my Fuji and with my Canon too, is my 85 millimeter. Both of them are f1.2, which I love because I love shooting shallow depth of field. But then I also typically switch back to my 35. So on my Fuji, it's a crop sensor. So it's actually a 56 millimeter converted to an 85. And then my 35 millimeter is actually a 23, but that's only an f2. So those are my two main sources that I go to, because sometimes I'll get right in there, maybe while the kid is playing, because I also like to interact with the family as well while they're doing it a little bit, because it also makes them a little more comfortable, and the wide angle kind of encompasses that, and kind of makes me a little bit of a part of their experience as well. So and that's another reason why they call me back, is because of their positive experience with me and wanting me to do it as opposed to maybe somebody else to do it again. Not to get too deep into this, but I don't want to sound like a broken record, but engagement photography, there's one thing about setting up people, but then it's another thing about just capturing that moment, and that's all I want to do. So these are unposed photos. They're happening very quickly. It's ideas from the couples, not necessarily like ideas that they're posing, but like I'll sit them on the ground, and then just kind of like, let them do their thing. I'll tell them to close their eyes. That's a big thing for me. Like, close your eyes, like take a deep breath, breathe it in, think about where you are, enjoy the moment, and just let me be there. And then let me capture that for you. Same thing here. This was obviously on the rocks, but I said, just enjoy yourselves. This couple here this was at a sunset. And this photo on the bottom, it holds a lot of meaning for them because, and I didn't know it at the time, but after I took this photo, the bride I later shot their wedding, had called me after they saw this photo. And I said, okay, guys, at the end of the shoot, I was like, okay, I want you guys to, do your thing. I saw that they brought a cooler. I said, go sit on the rocks. Go just enjoy the sunset. The sunset was right in front of them. So the sun was behind me and I'm shooting them directly. I said, don't worry about me. Just enjoy your time. And they told me after I took these photos, this was the first time they've actually sat and enjoyed a sunset together. And so when they look at this photo, they think of a very easy time thinking about their wedding. And this couple, I actually met this couple 2 hours before we were supposed to shoot. I met them, I didn't meet them like for the first time. I met them ahead of time at a cafe just to talk, just to hang out and get to know them a little bit better before we even got into the shoot. And when we got into that, like, it made everything just go by so smoothly. And they got really emotional just having the shoot itself because it held a lot more meaning to them. So I do spend a lot of times with my couple. I want to make sure they're comfortable. And I'm, again, broken record, experience. It's all about their experience while going through the photos. One thing to talk about experience, and if I'm not boring you guys too much, I mean, I don't even know what time it is right now, but
You're okay. It's 12.
Oh my God, it's 12 o'clock.
We got like
goodness.
15 more minutes. Before
Okay, and then we'll open up questions. So let me speed it up a little bit. And thank you guys for bearing with me through this because I didn't realize I was going to even talk this long.
I think you're doing a fantastic job.
But thank you. I did a wedding for bride and groom. It was a very good experience for the entire family. And then their sister hired me for their wedding. I'm sorry, her sister wanted to hire me for their wedding, and I was already booked. So I unfortunately could not make that wedding, and it hurt real bad that I couldn't be there. The third sister then hired me for their wedding. Their fourth sister is getting married next year, and they're hiring me. So I've worked with that family for 4 sisters because that second sister that didn't hire me, they booked me for a maternity session when they were pregnant. So I was able to work with them. But the reason I bring this up is because not only have I made a connection with this family, but that second sister had her wedding. And then I called my original couple, her sister, and I said, hey, how was your sister's wedding? And she said, it was okay. So, well, what do you mean it was okay? I saw the photos on Facebook. I said, the photos look great. Like everything looked like it went really well. Well, she doesn't really like the photos. I'm like, what do you mean she doesn't like the photos? They look great. The photographer was late. He was just bossy. He was rude. He wanted to just get out of there for the end of the day. And so it's that particular reason why experience is everything for the couple. If they don't have a good experience, they're not going to love their photos and they're not going to have any emotional connection to it whatsoever. And they're probably not going to want to get them printed out. And it's just, it saddens me when something like that happens because this is the one time that they get to do it. And it is our job to make sure that is the best possible experience possible. There's a lot of possibles. But yeah, that's why we do this, guys. So other than weddings, and we're starting to wrap up a little bit, this is some other things that I do to kind of clear my head and just kind of take in my surroundings. This is, when I shot the Mets game. I also do movie production photography where I get to go on set and take these candid shots of set because they want to make sure that those photos look like a screenshot from the movie. And it's really good practice as well because you're just capturing things as they're happening. Same thing with music photography. I still do music photography, but I'm capturing more of the emotion and more of the focus and the drive you know, this is in a green room and this is just a prep before a show of, you know, Nick, my friend Nick, just kind of relaxing before a show, being able to be on stage and capturing that connection between the different musicians. And then this is my friend Tim, who I said had the band. I'm able to go out on tour with them, take some photos, but I get to go backstage, take photos like this, where you see that kind of background connection or backstage connection. And on top of that, Tim also has kids. So when they do, you know, their sound checks, their kids are on stage and they're able to interact with their kids. I'm just a fly on the wall, guys. Like, I'm just here to capture these moments, because when those kids grow up, you know, dads, everyone, the whole family, they're going to look at those photos and remember that time when they were playing music and having these shows, that connection of being on stage with them, and doing something that they love and involving their kids with. These are all organic shots. None of these are set up. I'm just bouncing around. They set themselves up on the stage. They go up there. They're just hanging out. They're communicating. They sat behind the drum kit, like, to play. They're like, oh, do you want to go play some drums? And they just go. Like, that's why, that is the reason why I do this, is because when my wife was sick, and this all goes back to that moment, I didn't want to make sure that another day got wasted of not capturing things as they happen, and making sure that, you know, these families have that legacy, because that's what these photos are, is our legacy. It's looking back at these photos. It's these candid moments that we want to make sure that we capture. So to close, what I do want to say is, you know, these images here are my journey. You know, these are places that I go. These are things that I see. I do this, you know, for creating art, obviously, but it's fun, it's relaxing, it's something that I like to do, it's something that I'm proud to do. But no matter what the struggle that, like, you may have going on, it's all part of your journey. And with that being said, like, you know, I shoot my travels because that's part of my journey too. I like to capture where I'm going, as well as photographs with my wife and my daughter. And I use, like I said, I use it as an escape as well, to kind of like just take in my location and my scenery and enjoy that time. But remember that, like, even documenting your travels of wherever you go is just as important as photographing people, to tell a story, because it's all part of your own journey, and where you've been, and more importantly, like, where you're going. So thank you guys for being here. I appreciate it. I hope this was helpful for you. And thank you to the CTPPA and Marietta for setting this up, and Aurora for reaching out to me and asking me to do this. I had a really great time. But yeah, that's my journey, guys. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much.